Making creative renders can sometimes get really hard and frustrating. But yet again, you have to break the wall that you have made in your head. So, in today's video, we're going to be breaking that wall by making this render over here. And for this, we're going to be using Blender Octane plus Photoshop. So, without further ado, let's begin the video. Okay, so I got Blender Octane opened over here. So let's begin. And as tradition for all Blender users, we're gonna select everything and delete everything. Now comes the part of our brainstorming. What do we actually need to make? Well, since I know this product is going to be an eyeliner, it has to stand out from the crowd and break the mold. And that was the word that actually gave me inspiration for this render. So without further ado, we're gonna start by making the product itself, which is a simple cube extruded up with some bevels. So let's just do that real fast. I'm gonna be adding a cube and I'll be scaling it down to 0.1 meters, scaling it up to Z. That looks fine. Now I'm gonna come over here to modifiers, bevel, and switching it to weights, going into edit mode, and I pressed 7 on my number pad to get to the top view, or Z for X-ray. I'm gonna grab one of these and going into the end panel, I'll just bevel the weight. That looks good. Yep, somewhere around there. Same goes for this and this. Looking good. Now I'm gonna be adding more segments over here, and voila, we got the basic shape done. So now we have two options. Either we could apply this and then do modifications, but I don't recommend that. You might need to go back at any point. So what we're going to be doing for the cut in the middle is we're going to go back into edit mode. I'm going to press Ctrl R, and at this point I'm going to put it over here. Now I'm going to be doing Ctrl Shift R to make multiple cuts, one on the top, one on the bottom, and putting it over here. Now in X-ray mode, I'm gonna be selecting this part, GG, to move the points, and now I'm gonna be scaling it inwards. Now I'll select this part again, go like G and Z, and same goes for the top one. I'll go into the front view, G and Z. So yeah, now as you guys can see, the bevel is actually messed up now. And how are we gonna fix it? The same way we added it. I'm gonna go into my top view and open X-ray mode and select everything besides the inner one. And I'm gonna be adding a bit more bevel. And with that, we are done with the model. So now I'll just move it up a bit, place it right on the 3D cursor. Nice, we're looking really good at this stage. Now it's time to add a plane for the ground over here and increase it a bit. And now we need a sand texture for this. Luckily for that, we're gonna go to our old friend Blender Kit. I'm gonna just type in sand. And one pro tip, if you're willing to use Blender kit for Blender Octane, what you actually need to do is search for PBR materials. So I'll come over here and texture based. This one looks nice. So let me just add it over here. Now let's search for an HDRI over here in Blender kit. This looks good. So we'll just add this over here. Perfect. Now let me switch to Octane and split this over here and like this. So I'll also hide this and add a camera. We'll go into the camera view, and what I like to do with my camera is I like to go into the viewport, if I can find it over here. Yep, here it is, viewport display, and increase it. Turn all of the gizmos and the gadgets off, the N panel, the T panel, zoom it all the way in, right click, boom, and then go into the render view. Now we need to go into Octane kernels, quick add node tree, and delete this, and search for path tracing kernel. And I'll just add this over here. So let's check if it's working. Yep, it is working. And with that, our whole setup is done. Now moving on to the lights. You remember we selected an HDRI, so we're gonna go into shader editor, we're gonna go into world, delete everything, but before we do that, we need to remember this name, Cloudy Sunset. So I'll just delete this, Shift A, S, and we need to search for environment, texture environment. Here it is. We'll add this to Octane environment. Then we need to add an RGB image, cloudy, and add it over here. The gamma should be 1. I can increase the power a bit, somewhere around there. UV transform, and let's start to play with. Okay, that looks really good. Now time to convert the sand material. We'll go into Octane and we're going to be using this plugin, Cycles to Octane. So convert. Now let's check it out in the object settings. So we'll add another node over here called texture displacement, and we're going to be plugging it into the displacement texture and adding the texture over here. And now let's increase the height a bit. Slow and steady. Yep, that looks good. And I think we might also need to change the lens as well to 108. And let me just put this in a dynamic position and drag it backwards. Yeah, that looks good. Or maybe like, ooh, that's even better. So now I'll change the resolution to 816 just to give it a more cinematic feel. I'll go back a bit. Okay, now since we're done with the modeling part, we're done with adding the ground, and the HDRI will focus on other things now. What do I mean by other things? I mean the glass. So for the glass, what we're going to be doing is adding a plane. I'll just put it up over here, and I'm going to go into modifiers, solidify, just making it a bit thick, somewhere around over here. Looks great. And I'm going to be adding the bevel modifier, adding the segments to 5. Yeah, that looks really good. So now there are basically 2 ways we can cut the glass. Either we could do it manually by using the knife tool, or by using another plugin which already comes with Blender. So we're gonna go to Edit, Preferences, and enable Self Fracture. And how do we use it? It's really simple. First of all, we'll need to subdivide it a couple of times. That looks good. So now I'm gonna press F3 and put this command, Self Fracture. Now let me just look at the settings. So I'll put it to big, to add a little bit of noise, or just crank it all the way up and press OK. So I think we're at a good starting point, and I'm gonna delete the original one because we only need this. Now what I'm gonna be doing is, for the background, I'm gonna be selecting one of these pieces, go Shift S, select it to cursor, rotation, and oops, not X, Y, GX, and just scale it up a bit and turn it like this, rotation, X, and the other ones should just fall down. I think I should crack this one more time. Yep, even better. I'll take the big piece and delete it. Now I'm gonna come over here to the Physics tab and enable Rigid Body. And I'm gonna be doing this for multiple pieces, so I'll just fast forward this. And we have another big piece over here, so I'm gonna be cracking it again and deleting the big one, and I'm gonna be adding the rigid body again. Okay, so we're done with that. Now what I'm gonna be doing, since I wanted to interact with the ground, I'm gonna be selecting the ground and extruding it a bit. So with that done, I'm gonna be adding a rigid body over here, but instead of active, we need to put it on passive. So for this, I need to turn on my render mode right now, just to save a little bit of memory. So if we play this, as we can see, the pieces that we want are falling down, but they're falling down at the same pace and everything is stagnant. So what can we do? Go back over here, take individual pieces and just alterate them. So I rotated them individually, and what I can also do now is come over here and select a few of these, go into my front view, just place them up over here, go over here, turn on proportional editing and press like GZ, just to give it some slight variation. So now if I play it, you guys can see it's a whole different story. So we just need to find a good frame over here. This looks pretty cool for now, but the thing is, these need to be moved. So if we go over here where we started, what I can do is GZ a few of these, because our main premise with this render is to have a lot of variation. Now if I play it, okay, this is a good frame that we can use, frame number 14. Now we're gonna start adding the material to the glass. So for that we're gonna be making a new setup over here. I'm gonna be deleting the universal shader and adding in a specular material, and I'll go to Shift A S and add noise. So now let's have a look what this noise is actually doing right now. So we'll add a UV transform over here. Somewhere around there. And that looks good. But instead of boxes, we'll test the other ones out. Ooh, that one looks good. So I'll remove a lot of these, because basically what I want them to be is something like scratches or something similar. So I'll add this back and put this into the roughness value. And just to control them, we're going to be adding a gradient map over here. Let's decrease them. Yep, that looks really good. So what I'm gonna be doing now is selecting this, and this, and doing Control I. So what I did over here was I selected all of the items that I didn't wanted the texture to affect, and then inverted the selection. So after selecting all of the glass shards, I'm gonna be selecting the main shard that I just textured, and I'll press Ctrl L, link materials. So we are done with that. Now let's come to our product. How are we gonna texture this? Very simple. I'm gonna add that, and I'm gonna be turning it into black. Now I'm gonna be making it a bit metallic. Roughness all the way to 0. You know what? We could add a little bit of roughness over here. Caustics, we don't need that. We could add a little bit of sheen, somewhere around like this. And yeah, I think we're good to go with this one. Now let's turn on our compositors. I'll just quickly convert it into Aces color space. What we can do is go to our world settings and copy all of this. Shift D. Now what we can do, we can keep this environment but increase the power. So let's play with the sun over here. Cool. Now going to our camera, let's add some depth of field. Instead of autofocus, we're gonna be selecting our object over here, and now use f-stop 1.8. So as you can see, now this is in focus while the other objects are getting a bit defocused. You know what? I might want to put a few shards like really in front of the lens. So for that, what I'm gonna be doing is coming to the first frame, grabbing a few of these, go to proportional editing, press G, increase it a bit, and do it like this. So we're just trying to make this even better, but the thing is we're at the hidden trowel position, so we'll do a lot of things over here, so bear with me. Okay, so after like a little bit of tweaking, we're almost there, but I'm gonna play around with it a bit more. Ooh, that camera angle looks really good. So I think that would be a good position. Let me just readjust this part and rotate the product like this. And over here in my camera view, I'll just come a bit more closer. And yeah, I think after the tweaking, we're at a really good position now. Or just move it a bit forward. And if I go to object and instead of like going all jet black, yep, that looks far better. So after like all the tweaking, what I did was I removed the noise texture because it wasn't looking really good, and I also changed the camera angle and played around with the glass shards as well. So I think the final thing left to do is readjust the camera. So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be coming up over here to the post-production, putting it into overdrive so we can affect everything. I'm going to be adding glare, and I want it to be a single streak, a little bit of bloom, blurring it out a bit, taking the ground and putting it a bit more up, and with that I think we're almost done. So I'll just do one last thing over here as like the final touch. So what I'm gonna be doing is adding another loop cut over here. Same goes for over here. Selecting this part by going into 3 and adding a new material to it. New, assign, and I'll add a new one. I'll delete this, Shift A, metallic, and instead of specular color, I'm going to be adding RGB. Yep, we got that. I'm going to be zooming in a bit, taking the ground and rotating it a bit, just like that. And with that, we are ready to render. Okay, so our render is complete now, and I'm gonna be exporting it to Photoshop. So I'll save it as an open EXR. Okay, now since we opened up Photoshop, let's import our EXR. Okay, now since we got our image loaded up over here, the first thing we're going to be doing is going to image mode, and instead of 32-bit, we're going to be compressing it down to either 16-bit or 8-bit. But for this image, I think 16-bit is a good one. So I'm going to click on merge. And now you might be thinking, all the colors are messed up. How do we fix them? Go into camera raw filter. Now what we're going to be doing is adding a bit more clarity, adding the vibrance, toning it down a bit, adding some green, coming over here to effects, adding a little bit of green somewhere around like this, and going into optics again, adding the vignette, pressing OK. So we're done with that part. What next? We're going to be adding a color lookup table now, and we have a lot to choose from. So let's just explore one by one. I think I'm going to be using the birds of prey. So now we're going to be turning it into a 1080p image. So we'll go to canvas size, 1080, and what we're going to be doing now is I'll add this, a new layer, select this, control click it, press W, right click, inverse selection, and then I'll just choose a black color and paint over here just to get the black borders. Okay, now since we're done with the compositing, we're going to be adding a few elements that will actually elevate this even further. And for that, we're going to be going to pexels.com and we're going to be typing dust on black background. So we're basically looking for things like these. So we'll just download it. So after downloading this, we'll open it up and I'll just drag it and drop it over here. Put it onto screen and it should be under the color grade. Now what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna first of all scale it all the way up, and now I'll make a mask, invert it, and start painting where I need. And one small thing, in real life, whenever we click a picture, it's not always 100% sharp. So what I'm going to be doing is going to blur this image out by going to blur, Gaussian blur, and just a tiny bit like that. And now for the particles that we made, I'm going to blur them out as well. So it's going to be, let me just make a duplicate of it before I do that. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Yeah, that looks fine. And I'll delete the top layer's mask. Now I'm going to be adding it to the closest part of our product. And now we can add the text if we want to. Yep, that looks good. Now I'm going to be adding the mask again. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to be erasing it so that it looks like the text is behind our eyeliner. So let's just quickly do that. And I'll take the text and increase the fill somewhere around there. And with that, we are done with the render. So I know this was a messy tutorial. I had to do a lot of retakes, and you might have seen my head going like, but I came totally unprepared today. I'm gonna be honest over here. And also, I wanted to thank the whole community for my first 100 subscriber. And also, the next time that I'm gonna be doing a product render tutorial like we did today, I'm gonna be doing a poll. So just keep your eyes on my social. And if you find value in my content, please consider subscribing and liking this video. I'll see you in the next one.